Voila! Happy New Year 2024, January the 1st. It's a bit bright out here. I'm struggling to see what's on here. I know it's only me. You'll be fine. So, I've been mulling over stuff, as you do. I think you do, don't you? As you come towards the end of a year, you get a bit reflective, which I don't understand why. Why can't we just do this all the... Well, I do it a lot anyway. And I don't know why. I was watching Escape to the Country in the UK, and I watch it quite a bit, and I see so many people with a wish list. And as you go round looking at the properties that they're shown, you see how their wish list doesn't really match their needs or what they want. And it reminded me of our wish list when we were moving here, when we were making a decision to move here. And we moved here in 2006. So we spent the end of 2005 and we moved here in July 2006. And so we spent 6 months plus 8 months working out where we wanted to be, what was important, whereabouts in France we wanted to be. And I thought I'd do something I've not done for a long time, but this is what have I got on here? Seven tips. 7 tips, and I've written it all down, unusual for me. 7 tips when making choices about your move to France. Now this is based on mainly a move from the UK to France. I know people come from other countries, but my a lot of my audience, I think, or many of my audience are American. But this is my experience, and my experience was coming from UK to France. So this is 7 tips. And my first tip, which came home to me when we came over, we moved here in July, but we came over in May for a bit of a recce tour in our then VW camper. And then I discovered that the scale of the map that I had on my wall in my study was wrong. Not wrong, I mean, it knew what it was, but I didn't. So some of the places that we'd looked at, or some of the area that we'd looked at was vast compared to what I'd imagined it was when looking at the map. So my first tip is check the scale of your map so that you know how far A is to B in reality, rather than 2 inches on a map or 1 inch on a map, or 10 centimetres on a map if you go metric. No, I don't know whether that's 1 inch. It's probably not, but you know, you get the gist. My second tip is lay a map of the UK over a map of France. Now that's going to be difficult because the maps will be in different scales. But I think if you can work out a way to see how many UKs fit into France, it will give you an idea of how big France is. I think you can fit 6 UKs into France. I don't know where I've got that from, but I think that that's what you can do. So it's really important, again, to give you an idea of how big France is, that you do something so that you can visualize it, if you want, if you can. You might not need to. Some people have this stuff, they understand it. I didn't. So, you know, for us, or for me, because I'm the one that does all the research and does all of that, for me, I hadn't really got a great idea of how big France was, despite the fact that we would travel down sometimes on holiday, and the journey would just go on and on and on and on and on. Despite that, I hadn't quite clocked how big France is. I was going to say was then, but it still is. So that's my second tip. My third tip is to let you know that for us, where we live, and we're rural but not isolated, as you know, because you can hear our road. That isn't. I mean, this is New Year's Day, so it's quite quiet, and it's quite quiet a lot of the time. And then sometimes at different parts of the day, it's not. We're not isolated. We are 4 kilometres from our nearest village, and in that village there is a machine where you can buy some bread. And last summer a pizzeria opened When we arrived here, there was a restaurant in the village that's been closed a long time. We have a Marie and we have a small post office. Our nearest town, small town, is 6 kilometres away. I can hear Gru. It's only January the 1st. Which way are they going? That's cranes. They migrate. They migrate to south in winter. I can't believe they might just be local ones that are moving around. Where was I? So yeah, our nearest small town, which has got 2 supermarkets, some restaurants, a post office, and various other enterprises, is about 6 kilometres away. Our major towns, or bigger towns, are all 15 to 20 minutes in different directions from here. And I think it's important to compare, again, in the UK, where would you get to in 20 minutes if you were driving? For me, in the southeast, and if I were still living in Canterbury, it might take us 20 minutes to get from where we lived, which was just on the outskirts of Canterbury, into the city centre, and it's not very far. So we're in Canterbury, but to get into the city centre if you wanted to go shopping might take you 20 minutes in traffic. Whereas here, travelling 20 minutes will take you 20 kilometres, 18 kilometres, whatever. You're not really in traffic. Can you hear them? When they're over here, they're going back north. That is mad. That is so early. Talk about climate change. They don't normally come back till February. They've not been gone that long. Gru, cranes, migrate. We're on the edge of the European flyway. So sometimes we get to see Gru. Sometimes they come directly overhead really low, which is lovely. It's a bit of a shock to hear them today. So yeah, think about where you can get to in 20 minutes where you live now, and know that for me, if I drove for 20 minutes from here, I'd get to a town 20 kilometres away. If I drove for 15, I'd go 15 kilometres away. Takes about a minute per kilometre. Likewise, cities. Our nearest city, which is Poitiers, is about 45 minutes for us, and that's where the nearest airport is. 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So yeah, it's important to know that, you know, if you're going to be rural, if that's what you want, then most places that you need to go to, you're going to have to travel some distance. The auto routes that we would need to go to when we travel up to Calais to get across the channel to go back to the UK, we go up either the A10 or well, we've never gone on the A20. But both those auto routes, the A20 takes you up and around Paris, the A10, A16, so it's A10, A28, A16 takes you around Rouen and up that way, which is now they're going back that way, which is our chosen route. That takes us 45 minutes before we get to an auto route. Again, travelling at a good speed, we're not in traffic getting up to the auto routes, but it takes about 45 minutes to get to, you know, either auto route. That was tip 4. Tip 5. This is all based on our experience, remember. You might have different ideas, but choose a house that fits you and your needs and your family. There were just 2 of us, and we chose a house based on people coming to visit, grandchildren running around upstairs. We'd need bedrooms, we'd need plenty of room. And the reality is that after year 2, the visitors begin to diminish. It's a long trek down here from Calais. It's 6.5 hours in the car. And visitors have come, they've seen it, they like it, but some of them find it too rural. There's not enough to do. Some of them are wanting more stimulation than you're going to get here because there isn't any. So they begin to diminish and their lives move on, and your grandchildren grow up. Some of them move away. And so for many weeks of the year, for us, I work at about 44 weeks of the year, we've got 2 redundant bedrooms that aren't used. The only bedroom that's used is our bedroom. You know, and it's a bit. I like the big house. We like the big house, so we like downstairs being as big as it is, and I wouldn't want to change that. If I were living on my own, and I've said this many times, if I were living on my own, if it were down to me, would choose somewhere smaller. But anyway, but choose a house that fits you. Don't spend more money. This is a should, don't, whatever, but it's up to you. What you end up doing is you're paying for extra bedrooms because you're paying for your guests rather than for yourself. So that doesn't make sense to me, to be buying a house based on people coming to stay. They do that a lot in the UK. It's like, well, it won't be big enough. We need 4 bedrooms. And I'm thinking, but you've got 1 child. We need 4 bedrooms. And it's like, but in the UK, you really are paying for your extra bedrooms, and you're paying for visitors who actually, you'd be better off buying the house that fits you and paying for the accommodation for your guests when they're here, when they're with you nearby. Anyway, that's tip 5. Tip 6, avoid any rights of way. Now, this is based on our experience. Our experience of buying somewhere that had a right of way, and still has a right of way, was horrendous, was really difficult for us. Mostly difficult because a lot of it we didn't understand, because it was in French. We didn't understand how it works, and all of the complications around it in French. And the person who also has a part ownership of the right of way is French. And we were left, thinking a lot of what was going on was because we were English. It was our fault. It wasn't. But that's what happened for us. I would never ever buy a house where I've got a right of way with a neighbour, here or in the UK now. And I had a house in the UK that had got those paths running along the back of them. I can't remember what they were called, and it wasn't ever a problem. But here, don't ever buy anywhere with a right of way. And I remember reading a story years ago, very, very early on, when we were dealing with our crap here, of a couple that had bought a place that had got a right of way on it. And it was a horrible story. And, I thought ours was bad, but theirs was awful. And ultimately, the wife took her own life. That's how bad it got. So if you don't take any notice of any of my tips, that's fine. But take notice of this one. Don't believe that you can sort it out. We thought, when we were buying, and when things were being talked about, and the notaire was saying, and there's this and this boundary issue, we said, because of the work that we'd been doing in the UK, we were psychotherapists, we knew how to work things out and resolve things, and do all of that. We thought, oh no, it'll be fine, we'll sort it out, don't worry. Did we heck? We have, but did we heck? It took a lot of working out, and we did it. But we built a wall. So that cost us, I can't remember how much it cost us, but we built a wall to provide a visual boundary, because our boundaries were not being respected, and it made a big difference. Best investment for us here is the wall. So yeah, don't do it. Tip 6. That was tip 6. Tip 7, and this is the final tip, because I haven't thought of any more. And a lot of you will know about this. And people, when we moved here 16 years ago, I was only in my early 50s, and Mark was in his mid 60s. And we bought this, and it's only an acre. It's not massive. But as time's gone on, as you've seen, it's become more and more difficult for us to manage. As Mark's got older, as he's had problems with his knees, as I've become ill and older and haven't had the energy or ability to do much, the land becomes really difficult to manage. And again, it's lovely, the idea of owning a piece of land. It's lovely, but unless you're both really, really keen, and Mark isn't, we've had the properties that we've had before between us. He isn't a gardener. He's definitely not a gardener. He will sit on a lawnmower and ride it around, but that's gone kaput now. But he's not a gardener. He doesn't know the difference between a weed and a plant. Even when I've pointed out to him, please don't dig those up, he's dug them up. So yeah, land is not easy to manage as you get older, and finding somebody to manage your land for you. So like over here, it's not obvious to me, and that might be because I'm missing something. It's not obvious to me, but you can't look for a gardener. We've really struggled to find a gardener. And what we're doing now is that we're using Ludo to do some of the things that we want in the garden, but he isn't a gardener. But many of the men here in France are gardeners because they do their own gardens. So he isn't a gardener. There's a lot of stuff that he does. He'll make fences. What else has he done for us? Takes trees down. But he will manage the grass for us, which we're not able to do now. But it's not easy to find a gardener here. I might not be looking in the right places. That might be my fault. But you don't get odd job men here in France. Everybody that is working has to be qualified to do the job. You can't be a handyman. If you're a handyman and you're doing odd jobs, you're potentially taking away a job from somebody that's trained to be a painter, somebody that, like Ludo, who puts up fences and does rural stuff. You don't get handymen here, and normally the handymen that you do get here are English, not French. So again, if you're able to, and I think I might have been able to, but Mark was the fantasist about here. So for him, it spoke to him, this house, and it was like, he said, oh, it's a bit like a Hansel and Gretel cottage. I'm thinking, I'm not going to use the word I normally use, but I don't think it's a Hansel and Gretel cottage. It's bigger than that. His fantasy of Hansel and Gretel is very different to mine. But it's big, and the garden's big, the land is big. We've got woods over there that need managing. We've got, well, you saw this year, trees that needed managing. So yes, it's amazing, because what you can afford to buy here with your UK money is big, and it has land with it, but it needs managing, and you are getting older. We're all getting older. And when we first came here with the estate agent, there's a room now that Mark uses, he's been using all the time, which we call the bunker, which is the room that he uses to build his models in and store all his unmade models in, and display all his made models in. And where he stores his models is a built-in wardrobe, and it's connected, if we were to unblock the door, to what was a downstairs bathroom but isn't any longer. So what had been created was a downstairs bedroom, very temporary, I think, or because it would have been cold, because that isn't a double, that's not as insulated as the rest of the house. And the estate agent sort of said, as you get older, you'll be able to, you've got a downstairs bedroom and bathroom. And we looked at each other and laughed. There's been times when I thought, how are we going to manage without, a downstairs bedroom would be ideal. But yeah, back then, 16, 17 years ago, it wasn't on our agenda, getting old. And I think, and you can't put an old head on young shoulders. So I can't do that. But anyway, these are my 7 tips. I hope they're helpful. And Happy New Year once again, although you might be watching this at another time. And I hope that your journey to France is easier than ours has been. Ours is really good now, but it wasn't. Just so you know, it's fine now, and has been for years. But it was a bumpy ride. Okay, take care.